E41 Marketplace Ministries. It's all about your business, and it's all about our Father's business. It's ministry outside the box. No matter what your role is in the business world, E41 Ministries is a special place where we can walk worthy of the vocation wherewith we are called, just as Ephesians 4:1 commands us. In today's busy and frenetic world, it's a blessing to know that God has a plan to bring hope, comfort, and peace through Marketplace Ministry. The E41 Marketplace Ministry of the Fellowship, it's a kingdom-building business.
Hi, I'm Kerry Fink, and welcome to this edition of E41 Ministries Television. It's a pleasure to be with you here. We're an outreach of the Fellowship Ministries, and it's just an exciting time to talk about Marketplace Ministry. Dr. Dave Robinson, who very much heads up the E41 effort, has always been a proponent of Ephesians 4:1 ministry, walk worthy in the vocation to which we're called. And that's really what we want to talk about in E41 TV and throughout E41 Ministries, is whether you're in full-time ministry and your goal is to equip and empower the people that you interact with in your ministry, whether it be the people who are coming to your church on Sundays or the various outreaches you have into the community. We want to help empower you to be as effective at helping them help you evangelize for Christ. And for those people who are maybe full-time in the workplace and then also called to ministry, how can we be effective in the marketplace, particularly in a case where oftentimes the marketplace could be hostile? We jokingly say that sometimes Jesus, a 5-letter word, could be potentially viewed as more offensive than a 4-letter word in the marketplace or the workplace, as strange as that sounds. And yet, as Christians and believers, we're called to make a difference and try to really develop a means of helping to spread the good news, the hope that Jesus Christ represents. So that's what we're all about. And today we are literally on site. We're in Reston, Virginia. We're at the Fellowship's annual conference, the One Conference, here in Reston, Virginia, having a great time, great speakers, great things to see and be part of. But we're also putting together some episodes of E41 because we have access to some amazing people who are doing some great work for the Lord and really coming from different backgrounds, full-time ministry, full-time business, people who are doing both. I'm in ministry, but I'm also tent making. So there's a lot of different aspects that we're covering. So this episode, we have the opportunity of meeting with Fred Joob. Fred is a pastor with Christian Life Church in Mount Prospect, Illinois, and has a tremendous background both in the sort of the business world, but also in the ministry side of things as well. And also with David Garrison, who also is in full-time ministry with Holy Land Ministries, very fascinating ministry. He's running schools actually in Israel, and it presents some interesting questions about how they deal with Christianity in that nation, but in addition has a background of running business right here in the United States. So those are the things we're going to be talking about. Thanks, guys, for being with us today. Fred, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay, and I want to ask you to just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be at Christian Life Church.
Well, I've been heavily involved in the church even as a child. My parents took me to church very early on, and so I've kind of grown up in the church. It was interesting when I went through high school, my plan was to go into medicine to become a doctor, and so I entered the University of Michigan in pre-med program. Mm-hmm. And while there, I got a job in a pathology lab, just as initially washing glassware and taking care of issues in the lab, and then ultimately became trained as a phlebotomist as part of that job. And I was there through my entire college experience. Interestingly enough, about halfway through my college experience, I felt the call of God, and I changed my major to religious studies and went on to seminary at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield. Got married. My wife was from Chicago, so we got married, and I went to seminary. And from there, went to Southern Indiana, where I was the administrator of a Christian school. So I dealt a lot with the community and with parents and children and so on. But then also decided to become part of the local Kiwanis Club there in Princeton. I've been involved in Kiwanis for the past 30 years as well. So that gave me opportunity to connect with a lot of the local businessmen. Gave me it opened doors of opportunity to talk to a variety of different people in the marketplace, as well as all the parents that were involved in regular work situations through the church and people that didn't attend the church. And so I had Princeton was a town of maybe about 3,000 people. So I had a great opportunity to talk to a lot of people at different levels. Ultimately, I left Princeton, came back to the Chicago area. That's where I met David Robinson and began working with him. And while there, I helped with the youth ministry, and then we developed a daycare ministry, which I helped to kind of oversee and get off the ground. So I was involved in that as well. So again, opportunity to work with parents and children and so on. Transferred my Kiwanis membership then to the Chicago area. So I was part of the Belmont Craig and Kiwanis Club. Again, got to know doctors, lawyers, bankers, business people in that community. Then I was with Dave for about 9 years, and then we kind of stepped away from that particular church. And I kind of stepped out of ministry for about 4 years, full-time ministry. I was still actively teaching at Christian Life College and attending that church then. But then I got a job working for Worldwide Health Services, which was a life and health insurance examining company. And so I drew back on my phlebotomy skills with them. And so I spent 4 years traveling around the Chicago suburban area, meeting with clients that were applying for life insurance or health insurance, taking blood samples and so on, and doing questionnaires and some basic physicals, height, weight, blood pressure, and so on. And again, that gave me opportunity to kind of meet people where they live. And I discovered something that kind of became my own personal mantra, and that is that I will never succeed until I commit myself to someone else's success. And so I actually told the doctor that owned that company that was kind of my personal philosophy of life. And then I proved that to him by becoming one of the best examiners that they've had. A person of integrity, a person that followed the rules, did the work, did it well.
Above and beyond.
Yeah, above and beyond, and committed to just the success of that company. And I'm actually pretty proud of the fact that I did over 5,000 clients for that company in those 4 years, and had only one complaint filed, and that was because I called somebody too early in the morning. And then it
led you back to the full-time ministry, though.
Yeah, actually, that allowed me to stay involved at Christian Life College because of the flexibility of that job. I was still able to teach, did some traveling for the college, was able to get involved in the church, initially on a part-time basis. And then in '96, I was added to the staff as a full-time pastor, and then retired from the examining business. But the greatest thing that I look back on was the fact that when I actually left that company, the doctor that owned that company told me, he said, if you ever need to come back to work in this area, please call me, because there'll always be a place for you. And he understood that in fact, he actually even gave me money towards a missions trip that I was going on while I was working for him. And it was an opportunity for me to really understand what Paul meant when he said, let your light so shine before men that they might see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. I understood what it meant. I had a better idea what it meant to be a light, in the sense that I did what I was supposed to do. I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't, try to proselytize or evangelize. I simply did what I was supposed to do in a way that would honor Christ and honor the company. And as a result, there were many times the secretaries that worked there would ask me to pray for situations. They asked me to, could you say a prayer for me or for my parents or my family or whatever. So it was, did I lead a bunch of people to the Lord? Not directly, no. but I think indirectly I left a testimony there that was
We're going to talk a lot more about how a number of people get involved in these things, and it seems like it's a divine setup. But I want to take a moment and ask David, tell us a little bit. You've had an amazing journey yourself from the standpoint that you began in the business world, in a family business, and now you have, over a period of time, transitioned into full-time ministry. So you really understand the balance in both worlds. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Right. Well, I was in business, as you say, for a number of years, out of college, business degree. Worked for various companies, a boat company and medical products and different things. Ended up the last 17 years of my career at my dad's company, when he started back in the 80s, and ran that for about 17 years, and retired about 3 years ago to transition into ministry.
And now you've got this ministry, which is fascinating. It's like there's got to be a whole story behind Holy Land Ministries and the idea of putting together schools in Israel. You have one that you've already been working with for a while. Now you have another one coming online in Bethlehem, of all places.
Right.
Give us a little bit of insight into all of that.
Right. The one that's been around in Hebron for about 60 years now.
Wow.
Has been there for 60 years, and we have all Muslim students, which is very interesting, dynamic, because it is a Christian school. It's illegal to proselytize. We're very careful about how we present the Christian faith and so on. We do a very good job of being there for the children, and we influence not just the kids, but the parents as well through many instances. The Bethlehem School, as you say, is new. That'll be K through 12. Hebron School is K through 6. We limit that purposely, because in 7th grade, the girls have to cover, the boys bring their prayer rugs, and we didn't want to go that route. Bethlehem, a little different city. It's a little more Christian friendly culturally and so on. So that'll be K through 12, and that'll be a mix of Christian and Muslim students.
Now, it's an interesting thing when you say you're a Christian school, but predominantly your population of students is coming from a Muslim faith. How do you, well, first of all, it's two things. First, how do you reconcile that? And then secondly, how do you operate in that challenge as somebody who is, because I understand you have all sorts of rules and regulations that require you to operate in a certain way, not unlike many businesses here. We were just interviewing somebody who works for an institution that is caring for people, but having to work within all the regulations and restrictions of government. So you can't just say, well, here, let me pray for you. It's not that simple. How do you work that? How do you present Christ, or where the opportunities present themselves in that situation?
The answer is very carefully, quite honestly, and for all the reasons you've outlined. There's legal issues and so on. We're very careful about that. Our best opportunity, I think, is in the morning sessions. We have our chapel time in the morning, and we have lessons from the New Testament, which is legal in that environment, because the Injil, they call it the Injil, is part of their holy literature. So we can tell stories about Jesus from the Bible and not get in trouble. Certain things we cannot say, but we get the point across in fairly creative ways.
I love the story, and I would ask you to repeat it. You were talking about one presentation, and then the two kids walking out from class and having a conversation about it.
Yeah, no, that's a good example. It's a time when we did some role playing. We had two young boys come up on stage, and one was asked to be the doctor, one was asked to be the patient, and the doctor was asked to heal the patient. And to his credit, he said, well, I can't heal the patient. I can give him medicine or maybe operate, make him feel better, but only God can heal. So he was told, that's good. He was commended for his insightfulness in that area. And then the lesson went on, to tell how many times Jesus healed in the Bible, and healing the sick or the lame or the blind and raising from the dead and so on. And that was the lesson. That's all we really said officially. But then on the way out of the room, these two boys were talking, and Rauda, our director, was walking behind them and heard this conversation. And one boy says to the other, well, we know only God can heal, and we also know that Jesus heals. Well, gee, that means that Jesus is God. So they connected the dots, and if we were to say that outright, that's proselytizing, we're going to get in trouble. So again, it's a very creative way of doing it, and it takes some effort, but it's worked out well.
Now, when you balance these two things out, what your experience of working in education field in Israel through Holy Land Ministries, and you compare that to the rules and regulations that you operated within when you were running the company here in the USA, it sounds like it may be a more difficult environment even than what we have here today.
I think legally it is. We have to be very, very careful of what we do and what we say. And I think the answer for both environments is it's relationship based. People ask us all the time, why would Muslim students go to a Christian school? Well, the answer is twofold. They value a good education, which we provide, and they're drawn to the love that they see at the school, the compassion, the love the teachers show, specifically that the staff is just so good. You don't see that in the government schools there, right? You just don't. So they're drawn to that in spite of themselves, and we have the opportunity to develop relationships with the children, and in some cases with the parents.
So this actually sort of goes back and ties with what Fred was talking about. The light is shining and people sort of are attracted to that just on that level. I want to talk a little bit about, you were talking about having worked with 5,000 different people making applications, and one of the roles that you did when you were in the workplace is as a committed Christian who's busy teaching Bible college, right? You're doing this all through the same time.
Right.
So you're busy with that, and now you're walking into homes and you're having to prepare both medical tests and paperwork that is connected with what they're going to do as it pertains to the coverage that they might be getting through this service.
Correct.
So how did you, I'm sure you walked into situations that presented an opportunity, but how did you manage that? Because you weren't there specifically. You were on the job, but there must have been some cases or some things that stand out where you said, well, here was an opportunity to talk with somebody.
Actually, as I think back, it was, for me, I had to put on a particular hat at that moment. I had to gain the trust of these people, because I'm going to be sticking a needle in their arm or asking a lot of personal questions. So my role there was as a medical examiner, and not as a pastor, not as a teacher. I had to basically sell myself as what I was at that moment. And so I really had to make sure that I didn't cross that line, because it would have immediately called in to question my credibility. They would have said, well, so you're not really a medical examiner, you're actually a Bible college teacher? No, I don't want you in my house, please get out of here. Because there were stories of, I guess it was a podiatrist that was also examiner. When they found out he was a podiatrist, they wouldn't let him do the medical. They wouldn't let him do the blood draws. So I really had to be very careful and understand what it was that I was there doing. And, if there were situations, and offhand, I don't recall anything in particular, because I was usually there under a time constraint. The people wanted me kind of in and out rather quickly, 15, 20 minutes maximum. And so every once in a while, I would see indications in that home that they were probably believers, depending on how, different things I saw around the room and so on. And I would probably get into conversation at that time with them. But by and large, I was there as a professional examiner doing that particular thing. And so I really didn't take advantage, per se, or presume on that situation. But again, it was a matter of helping them feel comfortable with who I was, helping them realize that I'm here, I'm gonna take care of this situation for you, and I'll be on my way. And so I really didn't try to come in there with any other agenda other than I'm here to do my job and
now,
and
when
go
you
on.
did that, though, did you find people start asking you any questions? Were there situations when the conversations opened up and it ended up that you were almost having church there in those particular cases?
Yeah, in some cases that would happen. Certainly, they would ask. Maybe they'd ask a little more about my personal background and so on. Again, a lot of people were matter of fact. They were, I'm having a medical experience here, so let's get this over with and get out of here. But yeah, there were times, and again, it was that. I think that's the key. Dave related to that too. The idea of relationship,
yes,
and that coming into a home, being very real with the people, and not. It wasn't that I was walking in there being sterile and medical, and I'm a robot. I'm here to do my job and get out of here. But to just kind of be aware of situations and be, again, I think the key is being led by the Holy Spirit in every situation, because there are times that as Christians we can end up embarrassing God more than helping the situation, and I think that's the key especially in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day world. I think the key is again relationship and love and really respecting and valuing these people and realizing that they've made a decision to buy this product, and so their insurance agent, his reputation is on the line because I'm representing not just my company but also the insurance company, and so I want to make them as comfortable and as again feeling that this is going to be a good experience.
Absolutely.
And I can be okay with that.
Serve them with excellence.
And I think that becomes a greater testimony because in the event, I don't think it ever happened, but in the event I would see these people again in a different environment, and they go, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a pastor. That's pretty weird." But it would still be a positive experience because I did what I did in that moment, in a sense of, this was a good experience. There were some funny stories that happened. There were some really kind of crazy experiences.
All part of it, I'm
it's
sure.
it's just part of the plan.
So
So
I was going to ask David to comment a little bit. So when you're bringing people in, I'm talking about your educators who are going to be working directly with the students, and you're asking them, you're almost putting them in sort of the same situation with that in sort of an analogous situation with Fred, where they have to be careful because they have their own personal beliefs, but yet because of all the legal restrictions, how do you talk to them, or how do you work with them so that they're always compliant with whatever the regulations require that they be, but so that they can also be real and transparent and helpful to the people, both the students and the families that are coming in contact with.
I think we just encourage them to be the best teachers they can be, and that includes being compassionate and caring and so on. I've seen examples in our hearing impaired program. Is a good example. A child might be afraid one day or something going on, and I've seen the teacher scoop up the child and kind of hold on to that little boy while she's teaching the class, and you don't see that in regular schools. But because it's just through sixth grade, we don't get into these deep theological discussions and things of that nature that would present some issues potentially that gives us some legal trouble. So it's mostly, again, children, relationships, being good, solid teaching staff that care about the children.
So when we look ahead, and I realize this is probably going to shift, it'd be interesting if when we get together at the next fellowship to have you talk about the experience as the Bethlehem School, because there you are going, you're going in really for almost like the next generation of development. Do you see that you're going to be making adjustments, or you said it's also a little bit more friendly environment towards Christianity?
It is. Yeah, we're learning as we go, but we're discovering that because it's Bethlehem, it's a little more Christian friendly, just culturally.
Yeah.
And because of that, it can be a little more proactively Christian. We will have actually about 30% Muslim and 70% Christian. Okay. Now the Christian students in that school will be mostly cultural Christians, nominal Christians. They will need ministering in a big way as well. But it's a different dynamic. We can be a little more, as I say, proactively Christian. And it'll be fun to kind of watch how that plays out, not just being more proactively Christian in terms of the programs, but how the children relate.
Yeah, and on top of that, too, as you just pointed out, you're going to be at them at a whole nother level of development, because now in their, what we would call in the U.S., the high school years, they're going to be hitting, certain levels of challenges head on, and you're going to be able to minister to them in that way. We just have really just about a minute left, but I want to ask each of you to kind of maybe encapsulate a thought. If you were going to encourage somebody who is called to the Lord and is committed to doing all they can in terms of kingdom building, is there like a nugget of wisdom that you would impart and say, well, with all my experience on both sides of the fence, the business world outside the church, but then also inside the church and what I do in ministry, is there something that you'd say that would be encouraging?
I would say, I think, find out who you are as an individual. Be very real with other people, and then just commit yourself to the success of other people. And through love and through relationship and encouragement. I think availability is probably a key thing. I think it's what distinguished Christ from the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Right. He was available. He walked among the people, and he listened to them, and he cared about them, and he did what he could to help them. And I think that's the key. Most people go to work and kind of ignore everybody around them, and then go back to their own little world, whatever that is. And as Christians, we have this kind of almost a weird idea that I'm in the world, but I don't want to be of the world. So that means I don't want any non-Christian friends. I don't want any connections with anybody else. And that's ridiculous.
But Jesus engaged with
them. Yeah, Jesus was accused of hanging out with those people all the time. And it's not that we have to do what they do, but we have to understand that we are like them. We're people.
Absolutely.
And building friendships with them. And one of the ways that I've done that over the years has been, I'm a big golfer, and so I've developed a lot of relationships with guys, non-Christian guys, on the golf course, and had a great deal of fun. And again, that's how you got to connect with people.
One-on-one.
That's the key.
David, how about yours? What would you say? What would be your nugget of wisdom?
I'm glad it's just 1 minute. That's all I've got. A minute of wisdom. I guess it's to comment on the phrase that we use all the time, which is full-time ministry or not full-time ministry. And I think that's very deceiving and can confuse people. I think as Christians, we're really all in full-time ministry. And it doesn't matter where it is, and that's where we need to talk about environment, I guess. But whether it's the workplace, or if it's in church, if you're a full-time minister in church, or in a ministry like we're working in, or if it's your golf buddies, or bowling club, or bridge club, whatever it is, we all have spheres of influence that we're in. And that's our field of full-time ministry. And that's really what I would say is that don't get hung up on the phrases. Just know where your friendships are, and be real to those people and influence them as best you can. And you can't save the whole world. We're not told to do that by the Lord, but influence the folks we know as best you can. Be a light.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Good. Well, thank you guys both for joining us today. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of exciting things that are happening here today at the Fellowship Convention, the One Convention here in Reston, Virginia. And I appreciate you guys taking the time out of the schedule to be part of E41 television. And we're committed to continuing the dialogue to really explore all the ways that we can be effective in ministry in the marketplace. So thanks for joining us, and God bless you.